This is on the base level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There isn't enough shelter to house the residents of the most powerful nation in the world. A housing crash of 60% is absolutely certain, and this affects you whether you own your home or you rent your home. As always, you see the hard sources to back this up. So settle in for this video, watch it until the end, learn whether you should be scared. And you'll know where we are and where we're going next in the U.S. housing market. Hi, I'm Keith Weinhold, Get Rich Education founder, Get Rich Education podcast host, Forbes Real Estate Council member, and 20-year real estate investor. First, what's happening with property prices right now? It is an East versus West dichotomy. The East Coast-West Coast rivalry that's typically associated with rappers or sports teams, but now the schism has extended to the housing market. And just like the sun, home prices are dropping in the West while they're rising in the East. And this stark geographic split is extremely unusual. And what it does, it really highlights the health crisis's lingering shadow in shuffling people around the country in some pretty weird ways. So really the key stats are that west of Texas, but including Austin, home prices in the 12 major housing markets fell in January on an annual basis. That's what data from Black Knight showed. But home prices increased in the 37 largest metros east of Colorado, excluding Austin. So what's really going on here? Western Zoom towns that welcomed an influx of residents during the health crisis, like Boise, well, they saw their bubbly home prices start to slow down as mortgage rates spiked. Plus the tech hubs that were so unaffordably pricey even before the health crisis, like San Francisco, San Jose, they've taken a hit from the recent downturn in the tech sector. And meanwhile, in the East, consistent job growth and tight housing inventory, and the fact that many cities there, they didn't see any ludicrous price boom during the crisis, well, that's helping push the East's prices higher now. So there's this East-West split, unlike I've ever seen before, as long as I've been doing this. Well, what about this housing crash that I mentioned? Well, in order to have a price crash, you often need to have a distressed seller. So we need to take a look at the number of mortgage borrowers that are in trouble, and that is measured by delinquencies and foreclosures. And before you and I look at some potentially ominous charts here together, what are we really talking about? Like, what are the definitions of delinquency and foreclosure? Well, a mortgage is considered delinquent when a scheduled mortgage payment is not made by the due date. So if the borrower can't bring the payments on the mortgage current within a certain period of time, like several months, the lender may begin foreclosure proceedings in which they repossess your property. So delinquencies happen first, they're milder, and foreclosures are more severe. Well, here's where it gets worse. Foreclosed homes, the more severe thing, where a mortgage borrower is often months behind, they typically sell those properties at a discount. And what this can do is bring down the values of the entire neighborhood, and this just spreads. That's because when the homeowner can't make their mortgage payment, all right, you need to think about what that really means. If they don't have the money to keep payments current, it probably means that they neglected to maintain the home too, making the neighborhood look kind of trashy, that condition that spreads. And compounding the problem of pulling down all the real estate values is that lenders that have foreclosed and taken over a homeowner's property, those banks are willing to mark down the price of the property in the hopes that that bank can sell the property more quickly. That's because banks aren't in the business of holding and managing properties, and that's why foreclosures have a tendency to lower the prices of other homes nearby, because that's used as a comparable. So here we go. This chart shows us how many mortgage borrowers are in serious trouble. And as you can see, those delinquent 90 plus days or in foreclosure, that's what we're calling serious here. All right, well, that number's historically low, and it's also going lower. The rate was 1.25% at the end of 2021, and it's just about half of that. at 0.65% today. And by the way, the reason for what looks like a high spike 3 years ago is that loans were in the forbearance program then, and they were counted. All right, so there are no problems there at all. That's actually really healthy. Well, let's get closer to where we can indicate if there's a borrower distress problem, okay? Less severe, those ones that aren't in foreclosure yet, these are those that are delinquent as little as one mortgage payment behind. Delinquency, the less severe thing. Oh, well, that number is historically low, and it's going even lower. All right, so no sign of coming trouble there. How about what these charts don't tell us? Well, Zillow tells us that 37%, about 3 in 8 Americans, they don't have any mortgage at all, owning their property free and clear. All right, those people are really hedged from distress. And hey, as I'm about to point out where the housing crash to be scared about is, go ahead and put a like on the video here if you like how I'm breaking it down for you so far. Despite the layoffs that you read about, they are typically at higher profile companies, and I think you actually should expect more of them, but many economists, even the ones that feel that we're heading for a recession, they don't see unemployment going above 5 or 5.5%, and we are still well below 4%. Now, we still have more open job positions than we even have workers to fill them, which is really like having more than full employment. So compared to the 2008 global financial crisis and the housing debacle where house prices really fell, today's homeowners have responsibly made loans, the opposite of '08. Most have mortgage rates so low that the payments are easy to make, and inflation doesn't make mortgage payments go up because they're fixed. There's a severe undersupply of housing today. That's the opposite of '08. And today, homeowners have near all-time record equity levels, as you can see here. And equity is the difference between how much your home is worth and what you owe on the loan. And why is this? Why is equity important to the health of the housing market? Well, in the '08 housing crash, homeowners often had no equity or negative equity. So they didn't even want to make their housing payment if they could. They didn't care about going into delinquency or foreclosure so much. But today, not only are fewer mortgage borrowers delinquent, if they did get into that condition, they would have equity that they would want to protect. So a strong motivation to keep up with payments, even if trouble came. Well, here's the housing crash certainty. Back in 2008, there was an oversupply of homes. There was such overbuilding that many houses just sat vacant. I was a real estate investor then, renting out my fourplex buildings at the time, keenly aware of what was happening then. Take a look at the level of housing supply today. By this widely cited measure, the active listing count, and this includes single-family homes, condos, and townhomes, this is an absolute 60% supply crash that we experienced and we're still in now. The normal historic volume of homes available to buy nationally is 1.5 million, and there are less than just 600,000 available today. It's not a housing price crash, it's a housing supply crash, like I pointed out in other videos, and it's even worse than you think. A lot of people consider a crash a 20% drop in the level of something. This is a 60% drop in the available supply of homes. And a supply crash is a bigger deal than a mere price crash. Look, America can't house its own people. No wonder you can't really find the home that you want. I mean, this is on the base level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There isn't enough shelter to house the residents of the most powerful nation in the world. That is the real crash, and that's why it's worse than you think. This era's housing crash is all over. It is a supply crash, and it really began in April of 2020. As you can see on the chart again, that's when the available housing inventory failed to make its seasonal rebound, and the 100% certainty of a housing supply crash, it's certain because it already happened. And what that does is it keeps more people bidding on this astounding dearth of available homes. And low supply is just another hedge against any sort of national housing price crash. Now, like I pointed out, Americans recently hit record high equity levels in their homes. Well, did you know that the rate of return from home equity is always zero? Yes, always. Home equity is also unsafe and illiquid, and having too much equity in your property exposes you to more risks than you ever imagined. This catches a lot of people by surprise. That's why I shot this video for you. It's an incredibly condensed financial education on the most valuable asset that most Americans own, and perhaps you too, your own home. So learn why your return from home equity is always zero. I'll see you over there.